Joining me now is William Lawrence, Professor of Political Science and International Affairs at George Washington University. Thank you for being with us tonight. Why do you think there have been no serious bids for president? Why does nobody want the job?
Well, there were probably about a dozen serious contenders for the April elections that were postponed for these elections, and all of those candidates withdrew. And there were one or two somewhat serious ones for these elections that also withdrew at the last minute. There was a former FLN official that withdrew his bid on Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, leaving two unknowns, a veterinary doctor and another unknown Algerian, who have just submitted their bids, but of course they would need 60,000 signatures, and with the quasi-totality of the Algerian population against these elections, the likelihood that they'll each get 60,000 signatures is relatively low, so that will force a delay to the elections.
What happens if the vote is postponed for a second time?
It could be postponed for a third time and a fourth time. What's underlying this is that the protesting crowds don't believe in the constitutional basis for these elections or the voter rolls. Algerians often talk about zombie, hundreds of thousands of dead voters, zombie electors voting for a zombie president in the past. Many aren't registered or qualified to vote now, and so organizing election in 90 days is highly unlikely. What the Algerian protesters want is some sort of national conference and a constitutional convention creating a new constitutional basis for elections and new voter rolls, which could take at least 8 or 9 months, maybe longer. And so, ironically, they're buying time for the regime to try to negotiate some sort of further outcome. The problem is that the military is trying to do this in a constitutional manner rather than an extra-constitutional manner. And here we have the partisans of evolutionary change running up against the partisans of revolutionary change who want a complete change to the system.
And is there evidence that remnants of the old regime are trying to cling on to power in Algeria?
Absolutely. I mean, these are the same, mostly senior leadership in the military. And while most Algerians view the mid-level and lower-level military figures as generally uncorrupt and trustworthy, and having seen most of the problems and the corruption being on the spying side and the ex-general side, certainly the current president, the current prime minister, and most of the current leadership are from the old regime. So they're still there, and they're hanging on to power, while those that have fallen in their disfavor are going on trial for corruption. And so what we've had up until now is sort of a military coup, a soft coup, the outcome of which is still very undetermined because the crowds are continuing to refuse any accommodation made towards them. So I think we'll continue to have postponements and rejections by the crowd until some other configuration can be brought in that's more acceptable.
William Lawrence, thank you very much.